Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer, and today joining me is His Royal Highness Abhijit. Let's welcome His Royal Highness. How are you, sir?
Well, and thanks for having me on.
I should have said sire, but that's all right. That I stand corrected. Abhijit, couple of things. Your good friend Zubair is at it again. He says that this locked coffin was khabar, I should say. That's the correct word in Urdu. Was actually in Hyderabad and not in Pakistan, as being said in several news outlets. What do you make of it? What is Zubair's reliability coefficient? For example, if it is zero, he's a complete liar. If it's one, he's Harishchandra. What do you think he is?
See, it doesn't matter. Basically, we know who the culprit is and who the victim is and who's doing the bonking. The necrophilia in this case. I thought it was his specialty, but it turns out it's a bit more. It extends to his family as well. Let me send you. I'm wondering if Sachin can actually, tweet this particular, not tweet, uh, um, play this video. It's the actual video. It's actually in Pakistan. So I'm going to send it to Sachin now, hopefully on Sachin. I've
Right.
sent it to you on WhatsApp. So if you could please, play this video.
Yeah,
That
he'll
should be
line it
good.
up. It'll take him a couple of minutes, and he'll also make sure that
It's
there are no
it's in
coffins and
Karachi.
torches. Okay.
Yeah. Now, this
So,
particular thing could have possibly been in Hyderabad, but it's only one particular bunch of people doing all of this nonsense.
all right,
So
here we
enjoy
go.
yourselves.
Yeah, here we go.
क्या उम्र है?
27 साल 27 साल
अच्छा। और कहाँ के रहने वाले हो?
सरगोदा।
तो यहाँ कराची क्या कारोबार के लिए आए थे, मजदूरी के?
आज मजदूरी के लिए आया था यहाँ पे काम करने के लिए।
क्या काम करते हो?
मैं कब्रों को पानी वानी डालता हूँ।
कब्रों को पानी वानी
जी
डालते
हाँ,
हो?
मालिक
कितने
है।
अरसे से?
हो गए 16-17 साल हो गए।
16-17 साल हो गए।
जी
अच्छा। यहाँ किस जुर्म में हो?
यहाँ समझो मेरे साथ एक वो लड़का था वजीरा, तो समझो ये वो गोरकंदा में पानी डालता था। तो वैसे मैयत दफन होती थी, मैयत आती थी औरत की, तो उसको दफनाते थे समझो, और मगरिब के बाद समझो उसके साथ वो
Can
गलत
you get
काम
the
करता था,
volume up a
सफाई
little
करता
bit? I can barely hear it.
दोस्त करता था?
हाँ, मैं भी उसके साथ होता था।
तुम भी उसके साथ होते? एक औरत
या कैसे दफन हो जाती थी, मगर असर में दफनाते थे ना मैयत, तो मगरिब को हम जो कब्र खोते थे अंदर जाते थे, वो गलत काम होता करते थे।
तुम कब्र खोदते थे, अंदर जाते थे और
कब्र खोते थे, स्लेब हटाते थे पीछे वाले पाँव की जगह में, स्लेब हटाया, स्लेब वो कब्र की जगह पे ना, कहाँ पाँव की जगह होती है, वो हटाते थे, फिर अंदर जाते थे। पहले वो जाता था अंदर, फिर उसके बाद फिर मैं जाता था, तो फिर गलत काम करते थे, कब्र में अंदर मुर्दे लड़की होती थी।
कितने मुर्दों के साथ ये कर चुके हो?
ये 48 साल हो गए।
48 खवातीन के
हाँ,
साथ?
खवातीन के साथ 48।
अच्छा, आखिरी दफा जब कब्र में घुसे, जब पकड़े जाने से पहले, तो क्या हुआ अंदर?
आखिरी दफ़ा ऐसा हुआ जब मैं गया था, तो अंदर से वो कब्र कैसे खोदे, अंदर गया सफाई करने, उसका हल्का सा चेहरा खुला हुआ था, दांत हल्के नज़र आए और आंखों से रोशनी जैसे आई, और मेरे को बाहर झटका मिला और बाहर जैसे मैं निकला, तौबा माफ़ी मांगा मैंने, बुलंद के बाद ना मैं ये नहीं करूँगा।
तौबा मांगी
जी हाँ,
अल्लाह
अल्लाह से खौफ खाया मैंने, बुलंद के बाद नहीं करूँगा।
All right, we rest our case. Let's see what Mr. Z has to say about this. And he will, of course,
So
say that there was no.
this is how he functions. Remember, he'll show you that a representative image was from Hyderabad, and therefore the rape did not happen, or that this isn't a phenomenon amongst his brothers and sisters and his parents. So enjoy yourself.
So, Abhijit, I have to ask you a corollary question here. So, when Kajal Hindustani shows them the mirror, why are they getting bent out of shape?
They don't like the mirror being held. No, read this fantastic article that Amna Ansari wrote. She says the Islamic community simply does not engage with criticism. For them, all criticism is assault on religion. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the way it is. I mean, you look at his own economic background. He's like real trash, right? So when you come from garbage, you have a certain thing to prove. I mean, he thinks he's climbed the social ladder. The fact is, he still remains garbage. Even if he makes money, it'll take his family. I mean, when you grow up in a public toilet, you'll always remain a lump of shit. It'll take 4 or 5 generations for that shit to sprout rice and then for the rice to blossom into something worthwhile. But right now, it's still at the level of byproduct of a public toilet.
All right, we'll stop at that and let's take a quick look at what is happening in Karnataka. It was written off for BJP. Many people said that Congress is going to come storming back. In fact, there were talks about who shall be the chief minister, and there was some jousting going on between at least 3 individuals. Abhijit, something seems to have changed. I mean, at least that's what it looks like. How true is it? Are the fortunes of BJP rising or continuing to fall in Karnataka? Your thoughts?
Look, I don't go by all the polls. All the latest bunch of polls that have been conducted just this last week have shown a significant swing towards the BJP. I'm still not buying it. Now, I have a friend who's working on the ground. I think you know who he is, because he's the one that gave me that very, very accurate Bengal prediction of a complete debacle for the BJP. His take on this, and I tend to trust him implicitly because he's been working on the ground there for the last 3, 4, 5 months, and he's been telling me the main problem here is that BJP has about 80 seats guaranteed. The halfway mark is 113. Okay. The problem is that Siddaramaiah had this Ahinda confederacy, minorities, OBCs, Dalits, which he got together, which was about 35%. So that's a solid vote bank for the Congress. And the second vote bank is about 10 to 12%, which is the Vocaligas for JDS. So Devagowda's party, Devagowda's son's party. So what ends up happening is the real fight is for the rest. That 10% in between the BJP's vote, 15%, between the BJP's 40% plus the Congress plus JDS. Now remember, had the Congress and JDS got into a pre-poll alliance, it would have been a total walkover for the INC. It's been remarkable engineering by the BJP to prevent the JDS and Congress from coming together, even though the situation for both of them is quite desperate, right? Because with a 45 to 47%, there's no way you can realistically stop that kind of an alliance. The real fight is in about 35 to 40 seats. We really don't know which way that is going to swing. The BJP itself doesn't know which way it's going to swing. Let's see what happens. I'll stand by his. Some people have predicted, BJP is going to crash down to 40 seats. I don't buy that. I'll stand by what my friend said, which is 80 seats minimum. Big question mark on if they'll form the government or not.
All right, that's good to know. Now let's go back to answering questions.
Because remember, even if they come to about 100 seats, that's still about 13 away. 13 is a lot. 13 is a lot of MLAs to be able to engineer defections for. And it'll depend on which side you go for. Because see, the JDS, even though it seems the weaker party, you normally, it's a normal logic, you always hit the weaker party and save your resources later on for the stronger party. But what happens with the weaker party is, who is the weaker party? Is it a multi-community alliance like the Congress, or is it a single monoblock, single caste monoblock like the JDS? Big question mark. There are no answers to this.
All right, next question, please. Or the first question. Simple Life wants to know, can state governments or village panchayats not follow the laws that were passed by the central government?
Well, the law is the law. You have to follow it.
Next question, please. Maximilian wants to know.
Simple Life, when you're asking Simple Life, if you're asking a question, please give some context, because this. is like, I don't know what in context this comes in. Anyway, Maximilian.
Maximilian wants to know how come Khalistani activity suddenly fizzle out. It started as a well-coordinated set of agitations and suddenly came to a screeching halt.
Good question. See, they've got splurge funding. Like, crowdsourcing it. You can crowdsource for a while. You can plan something just before an election, but post-election they don't have funds for mobilization. I suspect you'll see Khalistani mobilization again in the run up to the next Punjab election, but not to the next national election in 24, because everybody knows where the national election is going to go, especially in Punjab, because everybody knows it's the AAP. Every other party there has literally been decimated. I don't think the SAT has any prospects for revival. The BJP is not coming there anyhow, and the Congress has been wiped out. It's literally ceased to exist as a party in Punjab. So, with Amritpal Singh, for example, everybody was saying he's a big leader, this, that. They shut down the internet and all of that. He's been in jail. Have you seen any violence happen because of it? Nothing, no? So it's all keeps coming down to money. Money talks. And connecting money back to what we said in Karnataka, remember, one of the biggest complaints that Congress on the ground seems to have is that the Bharat Jodo Yatra that clown carried out just months before the Karnataka election, all the Karnataka ticket wannabes had to cough up money, white money, which is, getting white money these days is very tough. Converting black to white is quite tough these days. It's not as easy as it used to be. It can be done, of course, but it's not that easy. So what has ended up happening is a huge part of their white resources have been wiped out. And one of the BJP's games might be to see how the Congress election funding goes, and then to start convicting and disqualifying MLAs based on that they overspent or used black money in elections. And
That's
you
an
can
interesting
only
question.
Rahul Gandhi can come up with these things where he ends up hurting his party more than helping his party. But anyway, best of luck to him.
Hemant 957 wants to know the Americans have cancelled their AGM-183 hypersonic missile after multiple failures. What do you think the Americans will do to counter Russian and Chinese hypersonic missiles?
I don't know why they decide to go in hypersonic at all. I don't know if they've cancelled it, but if you're saying so, sure. But I never understood why they decide to go hypersonic, because they have always focused on extremely high precision, extremely jam resistant, stealthy long range cruise missiles, which are extremely accurate. Okay. Speed reduces the prospects for accuracy. It reduces detection time for the detector, but it also reduces detection time for the missile itself in the terminal phase of its trajectory. So I'm not really surprised. I don't think it was ever a priority, and I don't think America feels threatened enough to be able to go for that next stage of development.
Hemant 957 again. Why is Zelensky so fixated on holding on to Bakhmut? Both sides are fighting in Bakhmut for more than a year. What strategic importance does it hold?
Well, it's a big road center. It's where a lot of roads to the rest of Ukraine intersect. That's one main thing. But I don't know who's falling into whose trap. Somebody is using the hammer on the anvil tactic that the French tried at Dien Bien Phu. The French lost very badly. Is it the Ukrainians trying it at Dien Bien Phu, or is it the Russians trying at Dien Bien Phu? I don't know.
Next question, please. Rohit Ravi wants to know, please tell me, can't people see Hindu radicalization? Can't people see madrasa being burned in Bihar during Ram Navami? Can't people see how a burqa girl... Let's take one question, okay? This library being burnt in Bihar. What really happened? Because I didn't see much in real news, but there was a town hall meeting of Ro Khanna in Fremont that I was attending, and one Muslim chap stood up and said that a 100 years old library was burnt down, and nobody said anything. This was his way of saying that Muslims are still not safe in India. What happened there, Abhijit? Near
I
Nalanda, I
don't know
believe.
because yeah, I don't know. All I know is that it was burnt and it was a Hindu mob. So I don't know. Uh, the second issue, which I have always had issues with, is people going after women in burqas. You know, I wear a burqa and it's a joke mostly, but it's also quite serious sometimes. The thing here is, a burqa, you see it as oppression. Okay, maybe it is. But how do you know the girl hasn't decided to make up her own mind about it? How does the girl have to live how you tell her to live? You look at, say, for example, A.R. Rahman's daughter. One daughter goes around wearing short skirts, the other girl covers up completely. Do you think she's being forced by her parents or is it free choice? For me, it's a very clear indication of free choice when the parents and the wife themselves don't cover up as much, when the sister doesn't cover up at all, and the wife only covers her head, but one daughter covers up completely. But is it Hindu radicalization? I don't know. Is it classic violence? People seem to think that communal violence did not exist before Modi came to power, which is the biggest joke around. So is it Hindu? Is there Hindu consolidation happening? Yes. Is there a Hindu identity happening that's subsuming caste and things like that? Yes. Does that equal radicalization? I think not. So, for example, is an increasing, you would have been a young man when I was growing up. In Madras, it was almost impossible to see burqas. Nobody wore a burqa. The Muslim women would wear saris and they'd cover their head with their pallu, and that was about it. Today, you see burqas in Madras all over the place. Is that a sign of radicalization? I think not. Radicalization, don't think radicalization comes in forms of dress. Is the burning of a madrasa a sign of radicalization? Yes. But is that systematic radicalization? I'm not too sure. Is it competitive radicalization? I don't know. Because all the statistics, you won't believe government statistics. I don't believe newspaper statistics, because newspaper statistics are subject to editorial slant. It's that simple. But if you're seeing Hindu radicalization, I'm not seeing it. Am I seeing am I seeing a continuity of communal violence? Yes, but at a significantly reduced scale than what I'm used to as a kid. Uh, Newspaper reports won't bring that out, of course, but there is significantly reduced communal violence as I can see it, large scale or small scale for that matter. Do I see a greater religious identification both amongst Hindus and Muslims? Yes, and Christians too. Yes. Uh, does all of that equal radicalization? I don't know. But amongst Muslims, you have a clear stream of radicalization that starts in the 80s in response to the Afghan jihad, because that really pollutes the waters. Saudi Arabia starts it off. I mean, this is listed across several academic literature. Does it infect India? Yes. Does it infect Pakistan? Yes. Can it be rolled back? I don't know, because Saudi Arabia is now treading the exact opposite path. Is it going to roll it? Is that going to lead to a rolling back? I don't know.
Malyaban Bhattacharya wants to know, how is the drug cartels of Latin America still run strong at Colombia and USA? There were allegations of them being under CIA payroll to carry out regime changes. How true are they?
I'm not so sure they're still as strong as they were, boss. I'm sorry, I haven't followed this for a long time. I haven't followed this at all. But they're nowhere near as strong as they used to be once upon a time. The kind of immunity that they used to have and impunity that they got, that's not there. Definitely not to the extent that it was. Was the CIA using them? Of course they were. Of course they were. The CIA finds any route of any intelligence organization will find any route of illegality to destabilize a country or carry out its wishes. That's what all intelligence agencies should be doing, including Indian intelligence. If Indian intelligence isn't doing it, I'd be pretty damn upset that my tax money is going there without them doing things like this.
The bigger challenge now, Abhijit, is this chemically produced fentanyl. and that they are saying that if you consume it at a slightly higher potency, it's certain death within 10 to 12 months. And a lot of people are dying in the United States, very young
Look,
kids.
you have
So that
you have things like crystal meth as well. You know, like crystal meth, the ability to get off it, as far as I know, is worse than heroin, opium, all those so-called natural drugs. Uh, Not that natural drugs had a very high success rate, but apparently crystal meth is one of those drugs where the rehabilitation is virtually non-existent.
next question, please. Ishan Sharma wants to know, Abhijit, what is your take on Bihar government releasing convicted criminals by changing laws? How will it impact the upcoming Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha elections? Will this not bring a bad precedent? Precedent.
See, what is a bad precedent? We know there were lots of loopholes when Bilkis Bano's rapists were released. Okay, here they've actually gone and changed the law. There, at least there was there was a little bit of shame about it. Here, there is absolutely blatant, in your face changing of laws to release this guy. Will it impact the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha elections? I doubt that very much. The government is extremely popular. Lok Sabha, though, it definitely won't affect that much. Vidhan Sabha, I'm not too sure right now, but I don't think so. No. I don't think this fellow is that big of a vote getter locally, maybe in a few constituencies, sure. Will it change the general trajectory? I think not.
Who is this fellow that you're referring to?
Some ex legislator who went
Gangster.
and killed a IAS officer.
Oh, right. Next question, Maliban Bhattacharya. How did a country like Brazil manage to overcome most of its problems unlike India? Their town planning is so good unlike India. Any role of US and China in it?
Really? Who told you they've overcome most of their problems, Malyavan? They have not. They have massive, massive problems of their own, which they're not able to overcome. Uh, uh, there were one or two bright specks out here, like Brasilia. Brasilia is a hideous city, by the way. Oscar Niemeyer, of all of Le Corbusier's students, I would say Oscar Niemeyer was probably the better of the lot, but that doesn't make him a very good designer. All of Corbusier and Corbusier's kids were hideous. They're not that good at it. I'm very curious how you think Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro are so well planned, because I saw no proof of this great planning. In fact, I've seen a lot of dilapidation across both Sao Paulo and especially Rio de Janeiro. Uh, there are places like Recife, I guess, which are somewhat, I use that term advisedly, somewhat better planned, but not that much better planned. I think one or two successful examples does not an overall example make. So the example of Embraer, look how much trouble Embraer is in today. The A220, which was the Bombardier, completely eclipsed its sales. Right? Nobody is realistically buying the new E2 series of jets, and they're going to have to invent that particular segment, recapitalize that particular segment. You look at, though their KC-390 is doing pretty damn well, but is it still going to beat the C-130? I'm not too sure. Even though I think it's a better plane with jet engines as opposed to 4 propeller engines. And their town planning is better than India, but better than India does not mean good. Let's be clear about that. You're starting with a very low bar. Okay, it's like what we opened up the show in, talking about Zubair and his necrophiliac buddies and family. That is not a very good benchmark to compare yourself with. So, comparing us to India, comparing Brazil to India, not very good. You compare it to other very similar countries, and you'll find that, Argentina is still better planned. Chile is way, way ahead. Brazil is not overcoming most of its problems, boss. You still have acute poverty in favelas. You have massive violence, which you don't hear about, but it's there.
If I could add a couple of lines to what you said, Abhijit, you're spot on. I went vacationing in Brazil in a French colony called Buzios, Buzios, Zios. It is about 125 kilometers or so from Rio de Janeiro. Now, just for compare and contrast, right? You can actually rental car in Brazil, except there is a catch. They don't insure the tires. You have to buy separate insurance for the tires. And I found that out. I found out why when I started driving. So we get into the car, and every street name, every avenue name is like this long, and they're all similar sounding, so it's very easy to get lost. I knew I was supposed to head east, and I was going the other way because I looked at the sun, because the guy who gave me the car, I had him enter the address so I wouldn't make any mistake, but he made a mistake. Then I had to pull over and then enter the correct name, and I entered that, and then it said, okay, go the other way. So I went there. So this place, Buzios, is it's like a tip of the peninsula, where one side you can see Atlantic Ocean, the other side you get it's a two sides
The Rio
of
Plata.
Atlantic. One is it is one side is warmer because the currents come from the equator. The other one is much colder because the currents come from South Pole. Interestingly, it is a French city. It was planned quite well, and it looks very nice, except that, like you said, once you step away from the main streets, I knew why they were not insuring their tires. It's rock hard clay. When it rains, right, the clay is so hard that it can be like a stone that you are hitting when you go through all these bumps and grinds before you get to your final destination. But other than that, Brazil is a pretty nice place. People are very nice. You have to understand and speak at least a little bit of Spanish. Portuguese, I'm not even thinking many of us know, but at least you have to have some Spanish, then you can get by. English is a no-no. And that's where I realized that the Portuguese word for bread is, guess what? Do you know?
Pan.
What is the
Pan.
P-A-V, P-A-V.
Pow. Yeah. Sorry.
So it is. So now you understand how pav bhaji happened. Any rate, so it was a very interesting experience. About a week there, and very good temperature, very good weather, and everything else was nice, except that this was a challenge. You had to know. There was one restaurant where the owner spoke good English, and they also knew that we only wanted vegetarian food, and they actually would prepare separate food for us. It would take half an hour or an hour, but it was a nice experience that way. Ishan Sharma wants to know, what is your take on the wrestler protest? Is it turning similar to farmer protests? What can be done to finish this unnecessary thing? Too many questions. Let's go with first with wrestler protest. What do you think?
I want everybody to research the background of the gentleman who's being accused. He has a string of violations in his past. Do I think the farmers protest, the wrestlers protest has turned political? Yes. Do I think they're going down the wrong path and asking for too much? Yes. Does that mean that the other guy is innocent? I think not. I am always very, very, very cautious when a woman gets up and says sexual molestation, because in most cases it turns out to be completely false, and this is one of the easiest ways of wrecking somebody's career in this country, or any country for that matter. So I think it's a bit of shades of gray on both sides.
Om Patel wants to know, why hasn't the USA professionalized their civil service like the Europeans have?
They have. They are professional.
They have, I thought.
You can also bring in political appointees, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a professional civil service. So they have a very professional civil service.
Om Patel back again. Is it true that Saudi Arabia took the Lebanese Prime Minister as hostage in 2017? If so, why did they do it? What were the ramifications?
Yeah, they did, because he was getting too big for his own boots. Saad Hariri. Yeah, they did. Good fun, no? Look, Lebanon literally depends on Saudi largesse, and they're trying to negotiate their own little peace deal with Syria, which at that point, today Saudi Arabia is negotiating its own peace deal with Syria. But MBS has zero tolerance for people who negotiate their own peace deals with his enemies. So when he does it, everybody else can follow, but nobody can do it beforehand. So it had a lot to do with that.
Next question, please. Kanda Batata wants to know, what do you think of gender neutral parenting?
I think gay, lesbian, trans, bi couples can be fantastic parents, but I don't know what this gender neutral parenting is. If it's gaslighting the kid into believing that the parents don't have a gender, or the kid should believe that they don't have a gender till they grow up and take puberty blockers. For me, that is child abuse, and everybody deserves to be in jail, and that child needs to be in the custody of social services.
GCKP wants to know, Abhijit, was LTTE created by the Indian state?
Yeah, I mean, not created, but sustained. It was given its lifeblood by the Indian state, yeah. Mostly by Indira Gandhi. We had huge training camps across that entire. At that time, my mom was the collector of Kadalore. You could see all the refugee camps, and I still remember lots of training camps and things like that with guns and things like that around that entire coast. Yeah, we did create the LTT to a large extent.
GCKP wants to know, Abhijit, Manu Joseph writes that if South wants it to secede from the Indian state and create an independent Republic of South India, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, he's entitled to his opinion. I think we should crush it. If it ever tries to secede, it needs to be crushed. And, I disagree with what he's written. The only one with a fissiparous tendency has been Tamil Nadu. You don't see it in Andhra, you don't see it in Karnataka, you don't see it in Kerala. And you'll actually see, when was the last time the Tamils killed lots of North Indians, or Kannadagis killed lots of North Indians?
There
None.
was
But
something during the
Kannadagis killed
nobody
Kaveri
killed. They
riots.
just right.
No, there was lots of there was lots of killing. At least 1,000 Tamils died, if the Hindu was to be trusted at that point of time. In and around Bangalore, about 1,000 Tamils were killed. Okay, when the
This is about 15
tribunal
years ago.
judgment or whatever, 15, 20
Hmm.
years back, more 20 years back at
Hmm.
least. So there is none of this innate bonding between the southern states to reach a consensus at all. So I think he's gotten that very, very wrong. Uh, Karnataka would have a greater affiliation with southern Maharashtra and Goa than they would with uh, even Andhra or Kerala. Uh, the cultural, resonance of Malayalam or Malayalis in Tamil Nadu or Tamils in Kerala is non-existent. Except we've had Tamil Nadu is the unique state that has had uh, not a Tamil chief minister for the longest period of time. For the last 50, 60 years of our statehood, we've been ruled by foreigners from either Kerala, NGR, or Karnataka, Jayalalitha, or Andhra, the Karnanidhi family. So, I'm not buying this argument. He's entitled to make it. I think India should crush it, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Abhishek wants to know, sir, after peace deal initiated by China between Saudi and Iran, what is the future of Saudi UAE relations with Israel and US dominance in Middle East?
Look, you have to understand, China, MBS just got in China to screw America over. China didn't do diddly squat. The more and more we read about it, we now realize China did damn all. It was just MBS's way of irritating America. And the future of Saudi US relations with Israel will be very carefully managed, because the Saudis and the UAE view Israel as being a much, much more important partner than Iran at the moment. Okay. Israel is also looking for levers to play. They don't have as many levers to play as the Saudis and the Emiratis do, but they do have levers to play. They will play levers in the shadows, and they are doing it. In fact, they are doing it. I think what the Saudis here are trying to do. Look, the Saudis are very clear; they're not going to allow Iran to go nuclear. They're giving them some breathing room to show that we can do certain things with Iran without you. Tomorrow, the same way, they were horribly opposed to Assad in Syria. Today, they're friends. They've made friends with Assad in Syria. They used to be best of buddies with Erdogan once upon a time, opposed to Assad in Syria. Today, they can't stand Erdogan, but they still welcome him. You have to make a difference between Arab hospitality and Arab alliances. Okay, this is the other thing. They frequently use that as a tool to manipulate the US. They did not before, but now they are very carefully. And clearly, America is not feeling very comfortable about it. But let's see what happens. I'm always optimistic about these things.
Aditya B wants to know, during successful winter campaigns of the Mongols against Russians, how big of a role did tactics play compared to them being already adapted to the steppe winter by origin and so easy?
So I don't know about the winter campaign specifically, but I've read a lot about the Mongol campaigns. I forget if it happened in winter or not. But look, they were already extremely well prepared. You look at where the Mongols come from. The Mongols are the far end of that Yakutia gap, which grows absolutely nasty. Can I share my screen? Yeah, I can. No.
Sure.
So
You can.
let me actually show you what the Yakutia gap is. Maps.google.com.
While he's doing that, could you please like this video so that we can get an even better response on our show? Your support is vital to us. All we ask of you is to just subscribe and refer our links to other friends and family of yours, and also please like this video.
Okay. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen. 1 second. Present. Share screen. Yeah. Google Maps, 𝙒𝙗 Republic. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Can you guys see?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah. Okay. So this is Now, if you go here, this here is Mongolia. You can see this, right? Yeah, you can see Mongolia here.
Right.
What this is here is that this is the 𝙒𝙗 Republic and this is the Yakut Gap. Now, if you look, what happens out here is it acts like a funnel, right? So these are mountains and these are mountains and these are also mountains. This is the absolutely crucial mountain. What it does is all the freezing winds that accumulate here, they get literally, corralled into a little gap out here and pushed down where the river cools it further and further and further. And this area, you look at 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤. 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤 is the coldest place on earth. 𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤, 𝙒𝙗 Republic. They are. Let me zoom out. So you see, it's right on the river.
Yeah.
And it's there. Now, this is a second gap which cools it down. But you see this gap here. So what happens is you have one area which is catching the wind, another area which is catching the wind, which is bloody freezing out here, which comes on refraction here, which is why you'll see this entire area here is horrific. It's probably not as horrific as the area out here, but this area is absolutely nasty as hell. And the entire reason that you have Turkic and Mongol migrations to the west is precisely because of how horrific this particular area is. Right? Now, when you have people coming from here, from average temperatures being minus 43 degrees Celsius, when they go to, say, Moscow here, average temperature around minus 13 or minus 15 degrees Celsius, they're actually having a summer vacation. No, I'm serious. It's literally a summer vacation. So they were.
But they could have gone south also, right? They could have gone south also,
but the
right?
South, remember, the South at that time was very, very strong. They did go south. They did capture China, remember. But China was very strong. The southern song at that point of time. So here you had You had the northern Jin, and then you had the southern Song, or was it the Shia? I forget. Anyway, you had the southern Song dynasty, which was one of the most powerful dynasties. They were the only people to be able to defeat a Mongol army repeatedly and successfully, which also happened around the same time, simultaneously, somewhere here in a place called Ain Jalut. Hmm.
Mm.
But you have such a united and prosperous area here, as opposed to small city states out here which are highly divided. What do you think is going to be easier prey?
The Great Wall was built by Emperor Qin to stop the Mongols, right?
Yeah, that was the earliest version. The current version that you see is very much a late Ming wall.
Mm. Mm.
But the original, if you look at Qin Shi Huangdi's wall, so today the wall would be somewhere from, say, here all the way up to, say, about here or so.
Mm.
But in those days, the wall was a very small thing. When Qin Shi Huangdi built it, it wouldn't have been, well, I mean, very small compared to the current one, around this much. And that's why Beijing used to get chosen as the capital, because remember, his capital was in Xi'an. Xi'an used to be Qin Shi Huangdi's capital outside Xi'an.
Mm.
But Beijing was chosen very specifically to deal with the northern invasions.
Mm.
So,
All right. Thank you so much. Nandish wants to know, what's your opinion on Lal Bahadur Shastri? Thank you, Nandish.
too short a rule to be commented on. When somebody is only prime minister for 2-3 years, it's very unfair to them to give an assessment. Inspirational, sure. In terms of policy, it's just impossible to comment on something like that. Were there any great policy strides during this period? No. So it's impossible to really comment.
Krishna Sundar wants to know, how did China's warning to Ukraine about supporting US policy towards Taiwan affect their relationship, and what are the potential consequences?
They warned, Ukraine doesn't recognize Taiwan as far as I know. So I'm not sure what the thing here is. They're getting a lot of help from Taiwan, this much I know. But are they supporting Taiwan? I'm not too sure. They're not, even though Taiwan says that the Ukraine cause is the same as the Taiwan cause, the Ukrainians don't claim that the Taiwan cause is the same as the Ukraine cause. Huh? So I don't know what you're talking about, Krishna. Sorry.
Next question, please. Nandish again, $5. Thank you so much, Nandish. Request for both, please share contact for astrologer you talked in previous episode. I'm in USA to need to consult from here. Need help. Abhijit?
So the astrologer that I go to is he only does it for friends. He doesn't do it for people he doesn't know. I mean, he really needs to know you to open up, and the other guy is retired. But there's one fantastic person who does tarot, and her name is Ritu Chaudhary. And her Twitter handle is Wonders of Oz. You can contact her there. WONDERZOF, not S, Z, ZOF. So get in touch with her. She's good. She's very good. I'm not going to give you her number out here. That's a bit, yeah.
Mr. Bharani Chandar wants to know, sir, only recently came to know why Diwali was celebrated after listening to Sai. Both parents and grandparents were shocked when I told them. Can you and Sri go over one festival and tradition each week for 5 minutes?
Huh?
Diwali.
Only after listening to Sai?
I don't know what you're referring to. I have not heard anything different about it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know what this I don't know what Sai is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sai Deepak.
Okay.
He must have given a new explanation for Diwali. We don't know.
Okay, I
See, if
don't
you
know.
do
Sorry.
research, you will find it, but you have to cross it with a lot of things. It's not, you know, so it's easy
Um,
to. Anyway. Ashish Sharma wants to know who do you think is the worst PM of India and why didn't VP Singh do anything about KP genocide of 1990? Was he unable to do anything or just didn't care?
I think by that time Chandrasekhar had taken over, no? Or was it
No,
still
no,
VP
no.
Singh?
It was still VP Singh.
Well, do you think VP Singh would have done anything at that point of time? And the real shame of it is the BJP supported him through all of that. But remember, there is another side to the story. The state ceased to exist. All the local Kashmir civil service officers, they sided with the militants and they asked India to get out. Do you know that? None of them were sacked. They were continued to allow to stay and think because India didn't have an option. We had nobody to govern the state. The state just stopped existing. And of course, he never cared. He was the worst PM India has ever had. Absolutely nasty piece of shit. I'm glad he's dead and gone. I hope he rots in hell. And he didn't do anything because it just suited his political purposes. He inflamed the entire Mandal Commission, this thing, uh, entirely for his own political purposes. Remember, so it is what it is. He always used to put himself above everything else. He historically did.
PKPB wants to know. Thank you, PKPB. What was the name of that bloodstock breeder you mentioned? Also, do you think the lack of an urban policy limits urban experience in Indian cities?
What
Bloodstock
bloodstock
breed.
breeder?
Dog?
There is no dog called bloodstock, and I don't do breeds anyway. I only adopt street dogs. Sorry.
Um,
Yeah, they tweeted something
Krishna
dumb.
Bhargav. Thank you,
They,
Krishna. Go ahead.
yeah, look, they tweeted
You,
something dumb. They didn't realize what they were tweeting. They deleted it. And now they're pretending it never happened. They don't even want to acknowledge it with an apology. Fine, best of luck to you. Not that anybody in India had any great love for Ukraine. I mean, secretly, everybody is actually wishing that Russia wins this war in India. Nobody will say it in public, but it is what it is. So, screw Ukraine. Who cares?
next question, please. Revant Reddy wants to know when the entire world was transitioning from socialism to capitalism from 70s, why was India so late with its reforms? It's counterintuitive to think someone as smart as Indira couldn't reform.
You were stuck in a trap. When you do so much socialist rhetoric, how do you turn around? And I think somebody as smart as Indira was smart with a lot of things. She wasn't necessarily smart with economics. You can be smart at, you can genuinely be good at something but terrible at something else. So,
See,
Indira was very politically smart, but she was the one who criminalized politics in India. How was that smart? It was great for her, it wasn't great for the country. So she might have actually been smart. She might have actually known what was going wrong, but she never saw the political benefit in the transition. And remember, the transition from socialism to capitalism did not happen in the 70s. Globally, it only happened after the collapse of the USSR.
that's true. 1990s. 1989, I think, is when the wall came
Late
down.
80s itself, it had started. After Glasnost and Perestroika, it had started.
Arvind TSY wants to know any point of view on the books from William Dalrymple like Empire and Anarchy, particularly at a time when there are strong views on how our history books have been written.
Look, I really like William Dalrymple when he writes about individuals. I don't like William Dalrymple. I don't think he has any talent in writing grand narratives. So, for example, White Mughals was a fantastic book, but the books that have followed it, I've had difficulty just reading them, not because I disagree with them, but because there's so many obvious flaws on page after page after page. Too much value judgment. Now, value judgment is fine when you're doing a sort of almost, if you read White Mughals, it's almost like a romantic novel. Okay. You can't do that with history. he does too much of that with history. So I don't take his other books. Uh, I mean, yeah.
Next question, please. Dovetail O wants to know, you lived in China for PhD. What was your experience that stood out?
For a whole year. Um I no one experience that stood out, you know. Lots of differences you see. Urban areas are quite rude, rural areas are very warm, just like it is in India. But what really worries me about that country is that homogenization. It's actually a very, very diverse country, and they're forcibly trying to homogenize it in ways that I don't like, and I think don't do China any good either. It's politically great for for the CCP, but it's not politically great for China, I think. But no one experience that stood out. It was just generally overall, you know, a sociological experience of seeing. And remember, in those days, it was China was very different. It wasn't under Xi Jinping. You could actually see a blossoming of, you know, a culture of I won't say dissidence, but criticism of the government. A lot of criticism of the government was tolerated till Xi Jinping came, and then it was all stopped. I mean, of course, there were boundaries to what you could say and could not say, but a well worded thing could be tolerated. Uh, China today is very different from the China that I uh, uh, traveled around and lived in. It's that China is partially there, but it's become. I had a lot of hope for China then. Let's put it that way. I do not have that hope for China anymore ever since Xi Jinping took over. Uh, but no one experience. I mean, how do you encapsulate almost a whole year into one experience?
Next question, please. Arvind wants to know, I was reading that 𝙒𝙗𝙗 𝙤𝙬 menu is the most authentic food of our ancestors, be it recipes or vegetables. What are some of the big influences on tea and food, Tamil Nadu food?
I've done a whole podcast on this, Aravind. You can go check that out. This is too long a thing. This is almost a PhD thesis in itself. But just to generally give you an idea, in Brahmin food, it's the avoidance of all foreign vegetables and influences, which is why in Pongal you will have ginger and pepper, but you will not have chili. Remember, chilies came from the Americas. You will not have potato. You will have banana or yam, but not potato. You will have no onions or garlic in a Brahmin menu. Second influence is the Chettiar influence. So the Chettiars brought in for me. So, you know, there are three spices attributed to the Chettiars: fennel seeds, which is classic of the south. So in the north, for example, like you use elaichi, long, and dalchini, cardamom, cloves, and cinnamon. In Chettinad food, the trifecta is kalpasi, which is patthar ka phool, star anise, and fennel seeds, in addition to cinnamon and cloves. But you know, star anise is something that comes from the Chettiar's extensive dealings in Southeast Asia. Kalpasi is quite native to here. They don't use it in Southeast Asia at all. Fennel seeds is very curiously something that you'd only see used in that quantity up north in Kashmir. Kashmir uses saunf a lot and Tamil Nadu uses saunf a lot, which is quite stunning, no? But that's the way it is.
What about fenugreek?
That's been
What about
Methi has
fenugreek?
been there throughout. Wait, let me go systematically. Don't just bring
Yeah.
in something like that. The third influence that you see is in Tamil non-vegetarian food, for example. There is no mixing of, it's like kosher. You will not mix a milk or cow product with any meat. So a Hindu biryani will be cooked in vegetable oil or animal fat. Uh, it will not have the dahi added to it, which is why you'll add tomatoes to it for acidulant, or tomatoes and lime juice for acidulant. A Muslim biryani will have dahi. Of course, those things are vanishing now. Today, even Hindu biryani is made with dahi in it. So, you know, there's you can uncover a lot of persistent themes. One of the most persistent theme, which is traditional, both in Tamil non-veg and in Tamil veg, is this mixture of pepper and cumin. Cumin, of course, came from the Middle East. It's one of the few imports that comes thousands of years back, but cumin is native to the Mediterranean Levant region, and pepper is native to here. But that combination, you will see it across so many things. Like, so for example, Ven Pongal, which is probably your most classic version of a khichdi, if you want to call it that, the predominant spices in it are cumin and pepper, right? Hing comes from Afghanistan. They've started producing it in India finally. Let's see how that experiment goes. But hing is super crucial to so much Kashmiri food, to Tamil Brahmin food, to Andhra Brahmin food, and things like that. And hing is quintessential. Then you have things like, so for example, some northern pickling spices you absolutely will not use. So for example, kalonji, which is a must for pickles, will not be used. Fennel is seen as saunf is seen as a non-vegetarian spice. Okay, little things like that. Methi dana is one of those things where kasuri methi is absolutely not used. The leaf is not used at all, which is very surprising because in the south we have about 20 different kinds of palak that we eat. Murunga kire, arakire, pasali kire, this kire, that kire. But we don't eat methi.
Yeah.
Ponnangani, but we don't eat methi. And yet methi is extremely important. It is the pickling spice for us. The pickling spices for us are only two. Well, three plus chili. It is rai, which is to say mustard seeds, and methi. We won't use saunf, jeera, and kalonji, which is the other three which make a North Indian pickling spice. We won't use that in the south, at least in Tamil Nadu, we don't use it at all. It is only mustard and methi, dana. But zero use of methi ka patta. Same thing, you use so much rai in your cooking. So much. And yet you don't use mustard oil ever. No community in Tamil Nadu or anywhere in the south that I know uses mustard oil at all, which is quite strange. Well, that is I think it's fantastic smell because I'm used to it. I'm a bong, half bong, remember? But here they consider it absolutely disgusting, which is quite curious because they grind it and use it in all kinds of things, especially pickles. So that's another thing. And I think the last one, very curiously, is in Bengal, you will use ginger in fish. In Tamil Nadu, you absolutely, no fish dish should ever have ginger in it. Because the belief is it deodorizes the fish and you don't get the flavor of the fish, which is actually quite true. Whereas the Chinese and the Bengali belief is ginger adds a certain aroma to fish. The belief in Tamil Nadu is that you only need garlic, maybe onion. You absolutely do not put ginger in your fish. So, I mean, there's hundreds. I mean, you can just keep talking about this all night.
One last question before we wrap it up today, please. Revanth Reddy again.
Sorry, one other thing. Yeah. Just one last thing, ghee. When we eat at home, including fish curry or mutton curry, even though it's a typically Brahmin thing to do to have both the ghee and, when you make ghee at home, all the milk solids, they're delicious. That solid part that becomes brown at the bottom of your ghee patram, that is served separately. It's served like, I call it tambram parmesan because it's exactly like parmesan. It's basically a milk solid that you put on your food. I will have it with, when you mix mutton curry or fish curry or something, there will be dollops of ghee and this thing that go on it. But that's very unique to my family, I guess. But in all tambram food, there is nothing that gets eaten other than variety rice, like lime rice or puliyodare and things like that, without huge dollops of ghee on it.
Last question. Revanth Reddy wants to know. Oh, actually, we are done. Thank you so much. Viewers,
no.
Please
that's
share.
The last question.
Okay, you want to enter it? We want to finish by 1 hour. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. What are your comments on economic reforms post World War II in Germany? Should we also liberalize our markets? Obviously, I mean, where's the question about it? But remember, Germany, you can't extrapolate Germany's pattern in India. Germany was already a developed economy, and all it needed was a capital infusion to regrow. Here, you have to create human capital. There, the human capital just existed.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much, Abhijit. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Unanswered questions will be taken up and answered by Abhijit, and just we'll give you an indication on that. Abhijit, as always, a pleasure having you on our channel, my friend. Thank you so much. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.